All right, so for step 2, once we've got our whole background covered, we're gonna be switching to our medium brush now, and we are gonna be starting on in the greenery in the background. You don't need your background to be totally dry for this, so it's okay if it's a little bit tacky still, no worries. What we're gonna do is we're gonna start out with our 2 greens, and so what you're gonna do is you're gonna get a big scoop of the dark green, and then about a half scoop of that lighter green that we have. And you're just gonna mix those together. It kind of gives us a nice emerald green. I'll hold it up on my brush for you here in just a second. So here's that color for you, kind of a nice emerald green, really nice. And what you're gonna do, the nice thing about this brush is it gives us a lot of variety for our brush strokes. Because what you can do is you can hold it on its edge here with the vertical edge, just like we kind of did on the background if we needed that variety. And you can get really thin marks. But at the same time with its broad end here like this, you can get really beautiful kind of flowing marks, and it tapers really nicely just because of the shape of the brush. So what we're gonna do is you're gonna start here at the bottom, and we're gonna work from bottom to top. One of the things that I like to do for this painting is I kind of gave myself a little bit of a map. And so because most of this flows from one direction, so that your eyes have a little bit of a flow as you're painting through this and a little bit of a guideline, I kind of go off center just to the right a little bit, and then I actually draw myself kind of a nice little line with that small short edge, that vertical edge, that goes all the way up kind of towards the top of my painting there. That just gives me a nice little map to say, okay, this is the kind of the path I want to follow, and this is how I want my brush strokes to look. Then what we're gonna do is we're gonna start going in and filling in and making these leaves that are over here in the background. So this is gonna be all the greenery that's in the background behind our beautiful bloom here. And so from the bottom, you wanna cluster a few more. So I start kind of just over to the side like they're coming up from the bottom. You give yourself kind of a nice little big one there. It helps to have more paint on your brush than not enough, because this is really nice to give kind of just a gestural stroke and let it be. And so these are gonna then kind of on its side, you can do another one. You can absolutely go over these again. You can also add a little bit of water in if you'd like. That sometimes helps just make it a little more free-flowing for you. Water is always our friend, so don't feel bad if you want to add a little. You just don't want it to be dripping. And so as we continue this, with the variety of brush strokes, you can turn it from its broad end or its side, or kind of use a combination. And we're just going to continue to make these leaves that kind of cluster at the bottom, give us a few here, 5 or 6. And then we're kind of going to switch sides to the other side on this one, and we'll give ourselves a few more. And so they're going to kind of cluster from the bottom on this one. They're not going to branch out so far to the other side this time. We're just going to start to kind of cluster those together. Bloop. Can't talk, it's fine. And give ourselves a few more. No big deal. And then what we're going to do is we're going to start moving up the rest of this. And so that just means we're going to kind of come through and give ourselves a few more here. You might have to mix more paint, no worries. It definitely takes more than just that initial that we had. This painting is really gestural, and so don't feel bad if your brush strokes aren't perfectly precise. Nothing in nature is, and so we just have to remember that through this too. And letting that kind of brush stroke and that dry brush texture come through, I think it looks this painting in particular even more beautiful. So just continue to have fun with it and move those up. As you go, you kind of give a cluster here or there. As you go up, you don't want it to be too heavy. So this one is pretty sparse. The heaviness is here at the bottom, and then we'll have a few more at the top here that are heavy. So we'll just kind of cluster them in, 1 or 2 here and there. Over here, I'm gonna kind of do one that's floating, because you kind of see this one behind this branch. It doesn't really have anywhere it connects, and so you can kind of do one that's just kind of floating over here, just like that. And then we'll structure our petals so that it just sits nicely in there. Once again, I'm gonna mix just a little bit more paint for myself, nice and heavy. And then come up to the top here, I'm gonna do one that branches off over here. And then these ones is gonna go off the page and cluster a little bit more right up at the top where that is coming right out of our bloom. Just like that. You don't want it to be too heavy. Once again, just kind of a little bit of a guideline throughout. If you feel like there's anywhere, I would kind of step back and take a look at it. And if you feel like there's anywhere that really is looking uneven or unbalanced at this point, you could add another one in. For this one, I might go one more off of this side, just because we are going to venture out a little bit more. But otherwise, we're really gonna let that bloom come through. So that's kind of step 2. Once you get through that, we'll come back and we'll do step 3 in just a minute.